This customer presentation is pretty unique in the fact that we have two generations of the same family to present for you. And to add to that, they've travelled all the way from Australia to be with us this week. Steve and Brent are going to share with you the evolution of their BusinessCraft application and where they are today with the new release, BusinessCraft 5. Please welcome Brent and Steve Parrish.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Enjoy coming over to these seminars, and I think this is something like the 13th or so that I've travelled over here, along with a few summits as well. And my son Brent, he first came to the 2000 conference, and he was 10 years old and sat in and did some of the tutorials, and came to one of the talk that I did and stood up the back and asked me a curly question that he was primed by another person to ask. And ever since then, he's been fairly keen on working in computers, and it's great to have him in the business as well. And he's been working now officially for me for about 7 years, finished his computer science degree. So he's going to show part of the application that he's been working on just recently. So what you can see up on the screen there, that's where we've come from. So rather than go straight into what the new application looks like, I thought I'd give you just a view of what our application was like and then what we've changed it to be like. And you can probably see I'm running on a Mac in Parallels, and my Mac's got a really high resolution, and like a lot of our customers, as they bought newer screens, our application, which was originally designed for 80 by 24, as I'm sure most of yours was as well, tended it to be a little rectangle somewhere in the middle of a big screen, and they'd immediately ask us, well, how do you make it bigger? I can't read it. And even on my Mac, I had to reduce my screen res right down just to be able to see the text. And sort of, it's not quite what people expect in a modern day application. They expect what Stephen showed in the previous one, where it's responsive and it adjusts to the size of your screen. So you can see there the fonts are fairly small, and if I just go to something like the chart of accounts, you've got a nice little window in the middle, and that's, as I said, on a reduced resolution on our screen. Basically, and this has been in place cosmetically for probably over 10 years, where we did a little bit of screen prettiness by putting some HTML around the data entry screen, but effectively everything in the main window was purely just the 80 by 24 text-based window, but with a little bit of sort of finger painting or sugar coating around the outside to make it look a little bit prettier. So, but to change the size of the fonts, it was a bit hard to do. We could do it, and some of our customers would have it, but it certainly wasn't what people would expect from a current application. So yesterday in the workshop, Richard showed us his magic way of being able to have the old way and the new way and be able to switch between the two through a configuration switch. And we've done the same sort of thing. Wasn't quite as elegant as editing a text file and changing the Synergy INI file. Instead, what we've added is, in our system, on our tools menu, a user preview option. And so this lets us think of a new option that we want to give to a client, and rather than inflict that on all users in that organisation when they upgrade, we can let them enable it at a user level or at a group level or at a system level or at a workstation level, and make that feature available to those who want to experiment with it, given that they signed the non-disclosure thing here, that it might destroy their whole company. But apart from that, they can agree to that little disclosure, and then they can go in and start turning on features. And then eventually, when we're happy with that feature, maybe 2 or 3 versions down the track, we will take that off being a user preview, and it then becomes the normal way of doing things, but it just gives us a way of transitioning our users. So I'm going to switch over and go into turn on a feature here, so click on that. So that's the way of changing your Synergy INI basically, and then I'll shut down. In this particular case, the feature I turned on, I need to shut the application down. That's sort of a major change. But if we just start back up again, and I log in again. no change. Okay, well that's fair enough. So what we've done, we've added non-discreetly a little option here to switch your desktop. So this was our desktop. The desktop had a home tab, it had a navigation tab, it had some catalogs, had a reports tab. So that was all okay. And then down here we have favorites and we have recents and we have some key options. But if I click on this switch desktop, which wasn't there before, then it lets me go into our new desktop. So this is the new look and feel. Same thing, it still has a home, a desktop, a navigator tab, reports and so on. But now it's a little bit different in that we can do things like this. I can zoom it up and it will remember that setting for that user. So that's at, I think I'm about 170%. So depending on their screen size and their resolution, each user can have a zoom setting that suits their eyes. Some people have got good eyes, some people have got bad eyes. So that was something that clients have been asking for probably, I don't know, at least 10, 15 years. And now with the system, we're able to do that. And that's through, basically we're using WPF, and that gives you these sorts of capabilities. You still have to program it in, and you still have to take account for that. And you'll notice as I zoom, if I sort of reduce it right down, the icons and the fonts and everything all scale up. So it's important when you design it, you can't then just have a normal icon that will pixelate as you sort of double the size. These are then icons are all vector-driven icons rather than pixel icons. So it's a little bit extra work for your developers, but it's what the clients expect of a modern application. So that's something that we've done. I'll just zoom back down. One of the things that people talked about previously is if there's an error or something goes wrong or you do something, we normally put up a message box and says press enter to continue. Again, I think Billy Hollis last year said that's probably not the right sort of user interface these days. Why interrupt the user in their operation if it's a minor thing and it doesn't require anything? So we've introduced, I'm just going to turn on a function here, our debug option, but what that does is then display just a toaster message on the screen that will then fade away. So anything that's not considered a really critical error or a critical, please stop what you're doing and answer this question, but they still need to be notified of it. We do it as a toaster. If they then want to go and view those messages after they're faded, there's a button there that just enables it and they can go and view the history. So, if I just sort of close that down and I turn debug off again, I'll get another message there. And so they can have a history of these and view them. If it's a major error, it will be red, and if it's just an information thing, it's blue. A couple of other things. If we go to, we now have an option for a dashboard. I think a couple of years ago I demonstrated a separate system that was a dashboarding system. This is now part of our main application, and it lets them create their own dashboards interactively. So I've got a series of them here, and if I want to modify them, well, first of all, it's interactive, so I can click on a pie segment there, and then it will apply the filter to the other elements on that dashboard. If I right-click on there and click Configure, then not only is it a viewer, if they're an administrator, they then have the ability to go and create their own dashboards. So in here, you've got all sorts of widgets. There's pies, there's bar charts, there's gauges, there's cards. So all the typical things that you would expect in a dashboarding tool. And so, for instance, I could right-click and change that to, say, a bar chart instead of a pie chart, hit the Save button, and that will then change that configuration so the next time they view the dashboard, it's then changed. You can move these things around. If I just grab one and drag it, actually won't let me do that, but or if I want to add another one, just click on there and it will then create one, and then I can move it. And so this is using the DevExpress tools. The dashboard designer, if you're in the universal subscription mode, comes as part of the subscription. So as a developer, you can provide not only the dashboard viewer, but you can provide the dashboard designer so your end users can design within the application. Same with their reporting engine as well. Just close that down and I won't save. In addition to having these interactive ones, a lot of our customers have scheduled reports. They run in the background and they would send off an email to the users of those reports, well, now they can also view the reports from within this dashboard viewer. So in addition to having dashboards that are interactive, they can just view say a PDF report that was generated every half hour, every hour. So it's just another way of viewing data. And we've got quite a lot of these reports that are built around our system. Going back to here, on we have a navigator, so that's our menuing system. We still have, and I'm trying to train our users not to use it, there's still the drop-down menu, which is driven by a script file, so it's a toolkit. That's the only part of our system that's a toolkit, is that we script the menu. And as much as I try to get our users to avoid using it, some do, but this is a graphical view of it. So we've put a little bit of effort into making it easier for them to access. Our previous version, there was no keyboard shortcuts on the menuing, now there is. But the advantage is that some of our packages, like our job costing, there's quite a lot of reports in the system. So you can see there heaps and heaps of reports just in that one module. This lets them filter down, and they can just click on one of these and it will then filter to the reports that are in there. But a lot of the work we've done is being able to search for something. With all these menu options, often clients, they don't know which menu to go to. They just know that they're after the cash book report or they're after a progress report. So if I type in progress, it'll then give me a list of, there's all the menu items that have progress in them. If I want to narrow it down to a module, then I can just put in a bit more information and it will then filter it down. So we're finding that that will be a much easier way for our users to navigate around the system. We have a reports area, so this lets them create their own custom reports as well as publish. So they can publish crystal reports, they can publish documents, all their standard sort of documents that the company might have, like help documents, they can put into there. So if I go into here, I've got PDF documents that I can bring up. So they're just basically giving you a list of files on their network that they're allowed to access. Down here are favourite items. So back on the home page, one of the things we added was the ability to put shortcuts onto their desktop. Every time you access an option, it'll show up in the recents, and you can create something as a favourite, and to mark it as a favourite, if you just right click, there's an add to favourites option there. We'll go into what we call our console. Most systems have master files, and so previously, if somebody was working in the job costing system or our contract system, they might have to go in and out of different modules. They might have to go into the job costing to maintain a job, and then if they wanted to raise a purchase order, they'd have to exit out of there and go over to the purchase order screen, or they'd have to go and do a supplier inquiry by exiting and so on. What our console screens now do is give them the ability to see everything on all the things that they need to do in their role, all from the one screen. And so it lets them search through, in this case, we build houses. Every house has a contract, and the contract is assigned to a client or a customer account. And so they often need to search for I'll just zoom this up so you can see. So not only on the main page, but our data entry screens now have the zoom. Over here, it's basically a way of searching through all the contracts and then applying some filtering in there. These are all the keyed fields. So with our searching, if I go and type in, say, lot number, and I type 123 and hit the enter key, it's gone and done a search and automatically used the ICM index for that lot number. So it intuitively knew that, oh, you typed in the lot number, I have an index on that, I'll go and use that index for you. But they can go and type in some other text and search on it as well. The other thing we've added over here are things like save searches, recent items, so every time they select a contract, it'll add it into the recent list, and down here, favourites. So if they're working on a contract, the next time they come in, they can save it away as a favourite just by right-clicking on one, and it will add to the favourites list. The save searches, what that does is it will fill in the search, whatever search criteria you've put down here. You can click a plus button down here and give it a search description, so the next time you come in you can just click on that and say, okay, I want all the current jobs, so I can just click on the button and it'll load up all the current jobs for you. In our industry, we have basically projects where somebody might be working on, they might be developing a major project with 50 contracts in it. So maybe a retirement village that's got a large number of units in it, and each unit is a contract, but you want to look at that as an overall project. So this gives them a project tree down here, and there's a parent-child sort of situation. So it's another way of then looking at what the associated jobs are, and then you can click on one and open it up from here. So you can use that as a navigation tool. If I open up one of these, actually before I do that, another area over here, all these windows, you can move them around, so they're dockable panels. And I think, and we've taken a lot of care to be able to save that layout for every user. So users can do things like change column widths, reorder the columns, set the sort order, apply filters, and it will remember those settings for that user. But if you're probably like most support people, clients can get themselves tangled and move panels around, and then they'll ring up support and say, I can't find the panels, where's all my contracts gone? So to alleviate that, we've got this little magic button here called Reset Default Layout. So when I do that, it's then going to go back to the whatever our layout is that we deemed as the factory sort of settings. So that makes it easier for our support team to get them back to a known state. The Activities tab, and I'm really just going to show you here, I guess, for some of the UI features that we've done. If I click on, say, drafting, actually tendering might be better. These are basically to-do lists for the different departments in the organisation. So I'm doing the tendering role, or doing the quotation. So these are all the jobs that are in the stage of having to have a tender done. And up here it's then gone through all my contracts, worked out which ones are in that stage, and then displayed a list sorted by, in this case, who's been assigned to doing that tendering process. If I just zoom that up so you can see, we've adopted an ability to filter. So if I click on here, it then filters those records down. There's 2 records for Brian. There's 14 records for Drew. Fred's got his jobs. So that lets them go to see their jobs that they need to work on fairly quickly. And you can select multiple ones. So if I hold down the Shift key, then it will select several of them there. You can view that as a Gantt chart. You can view it as a calendar. So they're all the sort of different viewing options that we've adopted. These are the dates in our system, so we have a workflow. Brent's going to show you the workflow a little bit later. And so it's colour-coded to sort of show whether it's on time and whether it's outstanding and so on. If I select a job, pick a job that I know. So I can just click on that to open that job up. One of the things that clients kept asking for is, how can I look at more than one job at the same time? If your system was like ours, when you had a job up on the screen, if you wanted to go and do something else, you'd have to close that form down, open up either to view another job or to view purchase orders. The WPF method of doing things, we simply, when they open up a job, it just puts another tab up on here. If I go back to here, I can select another contract just by double clicking it. And then I can have 2 contracts open at the same time, and I can flick between them. And you can then right click and show that in a separate window so that they can view each one separately if need be. So then you can sort of work on that separate, put it onto another screen if you want to. Within a contract, I'll just go into a few things to show you. And I might just zoom back down again. One of the things that's important when building a house is all the correspondence between the client and the house builder is keeping track of that. So the system generates a lot of standard letters. They have site notes where supervisor needs to type in a conversation that they had on the phone. So all the plans that go with that contract. So previously, we've always stored that information. We've generated the Word documents, I think with the famous Q merge that people from Jack Henry would know. So that's been in our system for a long time, but to actually view them was quite cumbersome. You'd have to sort of go, click on one, it'll pop it up into a window or load Word up in a window, and it wasn't easy to navigate through that. So we wanted to be able to have a quick way of navigating through their correspondence. And so what we've done is then created a generic preview option. Down here there's an icon to show what type of document it is, whether it's a Word document, a PDF document. If it's an SMS, then it just shows you the SMS message. If it's a phone call, then it just types the notes in there. So with the DevExpress toolset, then that's a fairly easy thing to do. So once you know the type of document, we then basically are showing either a PDF viewer or a rich text viewer or an image viewer or a just plain text. So this panel over here basically just changes depending on the type of document that it's viewing. And it's just making life a lot easier for our clients to, when they've got a customer on the phone, they can quickly go and view that information and got a much better history of what's going on. Again, then we've applied filters so each of the documents fall into a document category, so they can quickly filter by category. So they can look at the construction documents, or they can look at the administration documents or the legal documents. I mentioned that we have a workflow system. So what the workflow does is all the stages and the tasks that need to be performed in building a house, and there's probably 300 or 400 of them that need to be ticked off in order to make sure that you build the house that the client was actually wanting. In Australia, we do custom house building, so each client can design their house totally different to everyone else's. So they might start with a standard design and then they'll have variations to that. And so making sure that you've met all the legal requirements, that you've done things like doing soil tests and that you've done site surveys and you've checked that they've actually got finance. There's a myriad of these things that need to be ticked off, and we track them and we forecast the dates of those. This is just then a quick way to view down on those ones. So down here is a list of all the events. What I want to show you here again is the fact that we can have, these are the purchase orders associated with that. So it's a lot more information now is available. And I've got that zoomed up a fair bit. If I zoom it down, you'll just see. So it's a lot quicker to view the purchase orders, view the documents, and have pretty much all the information that's needed for knowing what's going on with that job. To open up, we have basically still our traditional screens. That is where the customer still does a lot of the data entry. And what I'll do is I'll just show you those. At some stage we will replace these screens, but for now we wanted to work on sort of a lot of the new look and feel without affecting the tried and true programs that have been working, and therefore we didn't really want to disrupt our clients. So they can still open up what we're calling the classic version, and so I can still go in there and go down and look at the events. I can look at the correspondence still, so they've got, look up the customer's address, so there's quite a lot of information that's available. But then when they finish and they close down that form, it takes them back to where they were. So they can still use the old screens and the new screens all at the same time, and that way, as we gradually get to a point where we can replace all the functionality in the old screens, then they'll stop using the classics. Some people probably use it for a while, but we're trying to make it so that it's an incremental change from old to new. Yeah, what I wanted to show you then is, again, the difference between old and new on one particular area. So I'm just going to, we'll go, a lot of your systems would probably be based around jobs, so we have a job system as well. And so this is the job for building that house. We do a fairly detailed cost breakdown or estimate of the job, where we go down to cost centres, then cost centres go down to bills of materials, bills of materials go down to cutting lists. So it's quite a detailed breakdown that we do. A lot of your systems are probably similar. What I wanted to really show you here is that as I drill down to each of the different levels, so I've gone from a job down to a section, down to a cost centre, and if I just jump down to another cost centre in here and hit F5, then there's the bill of quantity lines, and then there's a few more levels underneath that. So each one of those in the traditional system was a popped up window, and again, to navigate through, if I now want to go back to a cost centre, I'd have to escape out, go down to the next cost centre and navigate to there, and it was sort of fairly cumbersome that you couldn't see all of that information on the one screen like a lot of our competitors could. A lot of them would have like an Excel spreadsheet style looking screen. So that was one of the things that we wanted to accomplish, was to simplify how they can build up an estimate. So what that looks like now, if I bring that same job up, so this is exactly the same back-end logic, the same routines for validating information, for looking up items. We're sharing all that same code. All we've done is given a new UI to it. And we didn't have to rewrite the calculations, the explode process, all those things that have got a lot of business logic in it. We reused that. So if I go back to our console, and I already have that job up there, and I go to estimates. So on that estimates, that was that first level, the section. So if I double click that, it will then add a section onto here, so I can have multiple estimates open at the same time, which we certainly couldn't do before. And that's that same screen. So now instead of having a window on top of a window, you've basically got a navigation pane down the left, which shows, you know, the bill of quantity items in the middle. If we go down to things like a bathtub area, it has images so associated with that item in the inventory master file is an image, so we can preview them. We can look at the purchase orders for that cost centre, so they can view the orders. So it's a lot easier for them to navigate and build up an estimate. We can cut and paste records. That was something people would say, oh, if I've already got an estimate, can I copy that to another estimate? And yes, they could do it. They'd have to go to a dialogue, select what they wanted to do, hit OK, and it was a manual process. Now, if I just sort of go back to here and I quickly add another section, and we open that up, and I won't copy any cost centres in. So I'll basically have a blank sheet to start with, and I could go to another job. In this case, I'm just using the same job, and I can select, you know, a series of cost centres and just hit the copy button, and then go to the new section and paste in there and reprice the items, and now I've copied them in. So I could have copied the whole job. I could have sort of copied and pasted selected items. To try and do that in the old way of doing things, I think, you know, most of you guys would probably say, sorry, can't do that. It's not something we can do. Whereas being able to cut and paste and still execute the same routine. So when we copied in it did a reprice, it still called our standard reprice routines. So making sure that we don't miss any logic from our original screens was fairly important to us. We've got lots of other screens. What I wanted to sort of follow up with is passing this off so that Brent can talk about an area that he's been working on. So.
Okay, so I think I'm just going to start off with giving you some context of what I've been working on for just the last couple of weeks on a prototype for a new workflow viewer. I just need to exit out and go to latest developer build, so hopefully it won't crash. So just to give you some background, lot of our customers are in the building industry, and we have a concept of a contract. And a contract can have a predetermined workflow, and the workflow is tied to this sale group. And often a lot of our sites will have like 15 or 20 different sale groups. So maintaining and keeping and creating these workflows is actually quite a time-consuming task. This is the current way that people need to edit the workflow, wrong screen, is through this data entry screen. And obviously from looking at it, you have no way of knowing what event comes first, what events are dependent on other events. And our customers will often create a graphical diagram in Visio, and the issue with that is it goes out of date straight away. So, and it's just one extra thing to maintain. So over the last couple of weeks, I've just been creating a sort of MVP of sorts, using a new DevExpress control. It's the new diagram control. I think it was released in December, and so it's still very new. There's not a lot of documentation on it. I've been going backwards and forwards with the DevExpress support and like asking how do I do different things, but they've been really good. Come back to me like generally the next day. So each event has a category, and for each category we're colouring it in a different colour. We've just created a palette, like a predetermined palette of colours that will auto-generate for each new category. So, but you can override that if you want to, but it's just the standard ones. Okay, so you can see there's different properties for this dependency. It's dependent on number 2000, dependent on 2010. So one of the things Steve and I sat down to work out was how are we going to arrange these items. Obviously there's like a little bit of smarts there to be able to have it arranged nicely and not have events on top of events, all that sort of thing. And we worked out this amazing algorithm and we're going to implement it. And then I did a little bit of Googling, and it turns out that they already, DevExpress already provide a way of arranging the diagrams nicely for you. I can like move these out of the way and all this sort of thing, and then go auto arrange. I'll hand it back over to Steve.
One of the things that I think Richard said earlier today, or it might have been Steve, that said a lot of the times people are using just the native controls, and often it's you roll your own rather than use a tool set. And we've been in that category. So back on our I'm going to say no to that. And we'll go back to the desktop. One of the things pretty much all that desktop is all roll your own. Apart from the dashboard, everything else is our own controls, and more so in our grids, we decided to just use a standard grid and then develop it ourselves. So if I just typed in 1, 2, 3 in there. So this grid in here is basically a very stock standard grid with a little bit of customization that we've done, but it's the out-of-the-box Microsoft WPF grid. And all of these controls here are our own controls, and you can do quite a lot with doing it that way. And then we subscribed to DevExpress, and sometimes it's actually better to use their tool set than it is to develop it yourself. And in hindsight, you sort of realise, so now we're gradually moving all of our grids over. For instance, when I did a dashboarding product that I demonstrated here 2 years ago, it was based on the DevExpress grid. So in one line of code, I was able to achieve what our customers want. And the big thing they always ask for is, can I export this to Excel? In DevExpress Grid, one line of code, export to Excel. It's really easy. And then you get prompted for a file name, and you can even bypass that by just hard coding a file name. And so I had this capability in this standalone little app that I'd written overnight, yet our main application didn't have that feature. So now our guys have actually changed that. And if I go to here and I go to projects, it's going to die on me for whatever reason. Yeah, if it doesn't work, I'll go to, no, there it is. It's just, even though I've got an error, it's okay. So that's a DevExpress Grid. And so now in our base DevExpress Grid control that we'll use everywhere and gradually replace all of our other grids, down the bottom here, there's already an icon for print, an icon for export, an icon to expand all groups and to collapse all groups. So that means we don't have to go and program that feature on every grid we do. It's now in the base control, and now our customers are going to say, oh, basically that grid is now a full reporting tool because I can select what I want by some filters. I can group it and sort it however I want it. I can apply conditional formatting just with a right click that built in to the control is conditional formatting. Grouping by is in there, totaling, all the things that you want to do on a grid is just out of the box. So I would absolutely say don't roll your own all the time because you'll save yourself a heap of programming time, and the cost of your DevExpress subscription compared to paying a developer for 2 years getting to this point, it's a no-brainer. The DevExpress report engine that comes out of the box, the report designer that the end users can have, so you don't have to pay for an external reporting design tool, the dashboarding, the grids, the diagram control, those things alone, the Gantt chart, they're just time savers. So we will still do a whole lot of roll our owns because we want to have our own look and feel, and with styles and so on, it's pretty easy to do. And that reminds me that I did mean to show you some things like if I go to the chart of accounts. So looking at that new screen layout there, I forgot to show you, even on our old screens, we can do, that's what it would have looked like on my monitor in my high res. So we've added the ability for them to select a scale factor even on our fixed font size screens, and it'll then remember that setting away. So that there's a few things in here that we want to have our own way, look and feel that sets us apart from our opposition and sets us apart. I mean, when you look at an access-driven application that was written 10 years ago and you compare it to modern UWP apps, they look old and they look tired, and so being able to demonstrate something that looks new like this makes it so much easier to sell. Exactly the same functionality we had 10 years ago. Nothing's changed there. The way the data's stored, no changes. The business logic, no changes. But just coming out of a demo where they say, oh, that looks different, that looks new and modern, gee, I like that, compared to, oh, it doesn't look Windowsy, and you think, okay, all right, but forget what it looks like, it does all this great functionality. We've added in there, one last thing, the themes. So I've got to close down that form before I can change the theme because it affects it. So our programs have taken a lot of care. They're a little bit OCD on colours, icons, whether something's 3 pixels out this way and it shouldn't be. They're very much looking at making sure it looks nicely, and even the themes, they won't let the customers choose their own colour because that might upset the way they've designed some of it. So we've got the themes built in. So we have a rose theme, and if I choose that, then it changes it to rose. And not that, people might like rose, but at least it has it in there. And one of the reasons for the themes is a lot of our customers have multiple data sets. So they might be logging into 3 companies at the same time. And so it's a convenient way to say, I'm in this company or I'm in that company. So it saves that away. So in this case, the theme is per company. We've got my few different themes. I'll just change to like the orange theme looks reasonable. And even so, when I go to these screens then are changed, they then apply the theme. We've now added the logo onto every form, their company logo, so when they've logged in, because before there was no necessarily any indication on the form as to which company they're in. If they go and start typing data and they're in the wrong company, they could delete something or edit something they shouldn't. So just putting their company logo on there is something that we've done. Getting back to making sure all the layouts are right, 18 months has probably gone into this version. It's a fairly major release. We released it on the 2nd of April. One of our biggest clients put it in a few weeks ago. Yeah, there's a couple of little things here and there that we've fixed up along the way. Some that we couldn't predict. We tested it and tested it and tested it, down to a lot of their users had bad eyesight. And we thought, great, we've got the zoom factor in there, they're going to love this. But they'd changed their DPI setting on their Windows to be 125%, and our programs have worked night and day on aligning some of these boxes so that they fitted just nicely, so that when you do things like have a screen within a screen, if I go back to the job screen, I better select a job first, that'll be good, thank you Brent. So these line screens, it lined it up exactly. I mean, to get that to happen, because you scale the fonts and then the pixel size of that window is now different. So to make sure that everything lined up, and then we thought we had that perfect. And the first day on a big site, the customer, about 10 phone calls in a row from their users said, nothing, I can't see anything. When I go there, there's no buttons there. And then it was because with the higher DPI setting on their PC, some of these sizes that we'd aligned things just didn't work. But the advantage was Synergy had a routine in there, in the toolkit sort of routine that tells you what DPI settings there are. It's one of the parameters. So within a day, our programmers have worked out how to detect the DPI setting on their PC, adjusted our settings for all the different zoom levels, and we then did a patch upgrade, and now all their customers that have bad eyesight are now happy again. So are they? Because the easy answer was, well, turn your DPI setting back to normal, get over it type of thing, and that sort of upsets customers a little bit, but their support team did that. The downside of that is Outlook and their Word is then got tiny little icons that they're having trouble. So they do want to have their DPI setting higher, even though our application now supports zooming. All the other applications don't. But now we can support different DPI settings. So if anyone needs any help on understanding how to do that, I can get our programs to help you. So that's probably about all. Was there any questions? Yeah, I'm sure there's got to be some questions.
Any questions? On a second.
Yeah. For the base WPF application, is that all Synergy.net? Are you using XF Server Plus? How are you actually getting data onto that? By which means?
Well, this is it's a traditional Synergy DBR. So all the logic and everything is in traditional Synergy. So just a stock standard DBR that's been running for, I've been working on this since 1985, I guess. So it's the same code that's been running all that time, just throughout. We then use the .NET API. So when our guys started to do the WPF, the Synergy.NET wasn't really at any point, it wasn't in a usable state at that stage. So all of our front end is in C#, but it's doing callbacks to DBL to get the data. So all the data's going through the API. We're not using, because we only have just got our customers to upgrade to Synergy 10, this version requires Synergy 10, whereas before, up until this version, they could still run on Synergy 9. So now that we've got Synergy 10, we'll start to probably optimise some of our reads to take care of to make use of the select statement. I think we'll get some good time savings in there. But a lot of work's gone into getting that data backwards and forwards across that interface as fast, because a lot of the clients might have tens of thousands of records that they might want to display. So we need to display it quickly. We package it up. We use data sets, I think, as a lot of the options, a lot of way of passing information backwards and forwards. We do a lot of code generation. We've been doing code generation for 100 years. And so a lot of our file objects, all of these screens are all code generated. That's why we can go and reskin something and have every application, every data entry screen can pick up that new changes because they're all code generated.
Brent, Steve, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.